Welcome back to Badass Branding. We're still in Module 1, Branding Foundations, and this is Lesson 2, Why Branding is Important. And we start off with a truth bomb, and that is that not everyone is going to like you or your brand, no matter what you do. And this is kind of one of the tenets of branding, is that we not only want to attract the people who are going to love us and who we're going to be able to serve, but we also want to repel the people who we won't be able to serve or who are not going to get anything out of what we do for them. So keep that in mind. In this lesson, we are going to learn that branding is no longer a luxury. We're going to go over basic purpose of branding, and we're going to talk about the psychology of branding, and then we're going to go over a little bit of about authenticity in branding. So let's start off with branding is not a luxury, and it really isn't. Gone are the days of starting a business and putting out your shingle as they used to do on Main Street, and then the customers just start rolling in. Now, you have a brand whether you like it or not, and people are going to pass judgment on you and your business. And intentional branding is what's going to allow you to guide your audience toward how you want them to feel about you and your business. This is all about influence. And so as you can see, branding really is a must-have. And like I say, it's really more intentional branding is a must-have because you have a brand whether you like it or not. So you're going to have a brand. It's that intentional branding that's going to be a must-have. So let's go over what the purpose of branding is. And that is, like I said, is to have influence on how you want people to think and feel about you and your business, right? It's also designed to build trust, authority, and loyalty, and branding will increase the perceived value of your products and your services. And a popular or famous example I like to refer to when I talk about perceived value, if you have two coffee cups, to-go cups, one is just a plain white one, and you have another one that has the Starbucks logo. Which one do you think is going to be more valuable? And most likely it's going to be the Starbucks one. And it's not just you slap a logo on a cup and it's going to have a higher perceived value. It's those years and years of time and effort that Starbucks applied in their branding that gave you that perception over time. So also think about that as you move forward in building your business. So consistent and strategic branding over time will help build that credibility, trust, and authority, and also increase that perceived value. And it'll also help you build confidence in how you show up in your business. So when you have a branding that is strategic and that it represents you and it's something that you can be super proud of, you show up with more confidence. You stand a little taller, you talk a little bit more confidently, and it really kind of shines through in how your audience perceives you, as I said. And like I said before, branding also helps repel those you don't want to work with. So imagine if you attracted an audience that totally wasn't your ideal customers, they didn't relate to you at all. One, it wouldn't be very fun, and two, you probably wouldn't make many sales. So let's look at an example, Harley Davidson, right? There are beautiful machines. I totally respect the machines, the design, and the craftsmanship, but not everybody wants one. Nor do they really care for how obnoxiously loud they can be, right? So they appeal to a specific audience and repel those that they don't appeal to. So let's talk about the psychology of branding then. So branding appeals to that emotional and psychological senses of your audience. And if you do nothing to influence that public perception, people will form their own opinion on how they perceive you anyway. So why leave it to chance? And that's why I talk about intentional branding. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm an MTV generation there. But if you think about like the visuals of an MTV video or a music video and how it might have changed your perception of a song's meaning. So those visuals might have had a completely different meaning than what you thought the song might have had prior to you seeing those visuals, right? Or how you see an ad campaign or a commercial that totally made you feel like they were actually reading your mind and they were talking to you directly. All of that is because of intentional branding. They're all done with intention to influence the audience's perception of them. And so it's no accident that certain brands have certain colors or personalities or a certain way of communicating, etc., right? And it's almost always based on that psychology side of things. So let's look at the Harley Davidson example again, right? So you have this really cool logo. Again, they didn't just start off with this cool logo, but this is how it's evolved over, I don't know, I'm assuming they've been around for 100 years or more, maybe, I don't know. But they have a cool emblem with strong letter forms and bold color. It almost looks like a patch you might put on a leather jacket, right? And then their main color palettes is this dark black and this bright orange, which is a high contrast color combination. Orange kind of represents that fun, freedom, stimulation, and determination. And the black is sort of represents mystery, power, and rebellion. So you can see how that kind of works with how you think of Harley Davidson and who their sort of people are. And does that sound like anyone else we know, right? It's no coincidence that Bobby has black and orange in his color palette, right? Because he is a renegade thinking online entrepreneur. And there's no accident that those colors are used in his branding. And to demonstrate the power and the psychology of branding, I want to play a little game. Now, I'm going to go through a few slides, and I'm going to go through them quickly. So I'm going to ask a question and ask for your response. If you want to play, just pause the video so there's not a lot of dead air. So let's get started. So when I say Tiffany, what color do you think of? If you're thinking that Tiffany blue, then you would be right. And Tiffany actually owns this color in branding. It's known as Tiffany blue, and it's a super powerful. When somebody sees that box, they know exactly what they're getting. When I say, what can brown do for you? What company do you think of? Again, if you want to play, just pause the video. If you said UPS, you would be correct. And when you look at this color palette, what company do you think of, or what brand do you think of? If you guessed Google, you would also be correct. And if I said 15 minutes can save you 15% or more, what company would you be thinking of? If you were thinking of Geico, you would also be correct. And then lastly, what color is Target? And if you guessed red, you would also be correct. So as you can see, the branding can have a super powerful psychological impact on how we remember and perceive brands. And again, this is done over time. And in the case of these big name brands, lots of money, but the same concepts can be used on our smaller scale audience. And over time, in our smaller scale audiences, we will have that same impact on them as these larger companies do at the society at large today. So you can see branding is a long game. It's not something that's one and done. You do it and you forget about it. It's something that's always evolving. It's something that takes time to craft and hone. So just remember that when you're doing this, if you're not going to get the immediate results over a week. So think about that when you're doing this course as well. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about authenticity, because this is something we hear all the time, especially in the online space. Show up as your authentic self, authentically you, authentic this. We all hear it, but what does it even mean? Basically, showing up authentically means just truly being yourself. Show up as you would if you were hanging out with your friends. Take, for instance, our very own Bobby Klink once again. When you see him online, he is the same way as he is in everyday life. And I've hung out with him outside of the online world, and he's no different than he is on camera when you see him in his videos and shows and lives and all that. So think about that, because it's a lot easier to just be yourself than it is to have this sort of fake persona. You don't want to be fake, because people will see right through that. So if you don't own a private jet or a Lambo or live in a huge mansion, don't shoot your videos or your photo shoots as if you did. Or don't act like you're working at the beach every single day on your laptop if that's not what you're actually doing, right? People are going to see right through all that. Instead, just be real. Warts and all, as I like to say. So keep in mind, and I think I said this in the last lesson, as you go through the rest of this course, I want you to think about how your audience might perceive your brand and how you want them to be, or how you want to be perceived, right? And you want to see if those match up, because if they don't, there's probably something off there. So you do want them to match. So think about all of that in the back of your mind as you're going through these lessons. And So we'll just go over a lesson recap here. So we talked about that branding is really not a luxury anymore, and it's talking more about the intentional branding, because you have a brand whether you like it or not. We talked about the purpose of branding, and we talked about that psychology of branding. And then lastly, we did talk about the authenticity in branding. So that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to go over the brand roadmap to identify where this branding fits into your business. We'll see you in the next lesson.